Hello. This is a very beautiful Cheshire cat staring at me. This is not me. This is me, and I'm here with my good friend Jacob, the NFT attorney, and many things beside. And yeah, I wanted to. We first met at Bitcoin Miami on the beautiful sandy shores of Miami, as Jacob was looking, very concerned about my extremely sunburnt skin, and was looking very pitying, and was very generous with that. But over time, it's been awesome to see you kind of Beef, for example, the first person to educate me that, and watch out for Stonehenge, the first person to educate me about, that some projects you don't actually own the IP of the project. You kind of are a kind of holder to some extent. But I know for our audience that will, I've told a couple of people that about kind of Lava Labs and all the rest, but maybe give them a sense of what the range of your power is as a holder of either a Bored Ape, or I think they give you a lot more control versus a Lava Labs, or I think they give you less control. And how do you see it, or what would you advise people to note?
Totally. So thanks for having me on. Happy to kind of chat through some stuff. I think with the licensing and IP stuff, it's really interesting that nobody, prior to 2021, like nobody would have thought they could make any money licensing their CryptoPunk, right? So it was like never quite like a huge deal because it was never really a consideration. It's not like Larva Labs was turning down licensing deals left and right. It was, interesting to note that they kind of had an old potential license back in 2019. Or 2018. They have another one in 2019, and kind of just like remnants and scraps. If you go dig around on the internet, you can find where like Matt and John had given their opinions on like how they think punk owners should be able to operate. But then, 2021 comes around, they file some trademarks, file some copyrights formally, and get themselves an agent to go quite Hollywood now. And it's, a bit murkier. And we've seen some DMCA takedown requests. We've seen some like, hey guys, this is our copyright.
Have already started to see some things where it's like, don't do that.
Yeah. So there was Ryder Rips took an alien punk and literally just sold a one of one on Foundation that was a punk, just a punk JPEG, alien punk JPEG, minted to Ethereum. And they ended up, formally issuing a takedown request, and he ended up, I think in that situation, he put together a counter, and it actually got put back on Foundation. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, but the point is, they are open and willing to, protecting their IP now. And, so Bored Apes came along and, quite immediately turned things on their head and set the entire new industry standard, which is on-chain ownership equals licensing and derivative opportunities of your asset. Which
cool. Which I think a lot of people, to be fair, may well have assumed in purchasing their CryptoPunk, but just didn't do the realize they were.
Exactly. But the people who initially minted it, they minted it with no licensing documents available, nothing available. So it's kind of unfair to assume that when they minted it or received their first punk, that they were like, oh, I can definitely do whatever I want here, right? That'd be a stretch for you to tell me that that's what they thought, right? And at the same time, it'd be a stretch for Larva Labs to say, whoever initially minted punks definitely knew they weren't getting anything, because that's not true either. So it's one of those weird ones that like actually would be interesting in court and likely will end up in court, right? I'm not exactly sure. I know
Sam pretty well, Sam Wick pretty well, and team over there who's kind of been working on this stuff, and it's definitely an interesting new opportunity, right, to tell stories around these characters.
Totally. It's like the greatest thing you could do is work with some of this IP that has kind of an automatic baked in. It's like this automatic baked in community whatever that word may mean. It's
Mm,
automatic baked in consumer base.
mm,
So if your option is, my name's Jacob, I want to be an author, I want to write a book about a guy who lives in medieval times and is a servant slave, but he becomes a warrior knight king,
mm,
right? Like, what better way to go about that than, instead of writing a book and hoping for the best, you're buying an asset with a built-in, readership, like user base of 10,000
mm,
other
mm,
people or
mm,
5,000 other
mm,
people who are looking for ways to enhance the value of their own assets. So if
mm,
you can tell a cool story while owning a punk or an ape or whatever you own. Not only have you told a cool story, potentially objectively a cool story, but now
mm.
you've subjectively told a cool story that like further promotes and benefits an entire, other 3 to 5,000 people who go, man, these things are really cool. We can do a lot with these things, right?
It does seem like we're at the beginning of signs that like all Bored Apes holders are part of a studio in some funny way because they're all financially mutually incentivized to create great content with the kind of core IP. And it is legitimately decentralized. Obviously, there is the Bored Ape team, but there are also a lot of people just wanting to do things that are pushing the community forward because that increases the value of their ape, which
Right.
is very different to Marvel, Kevin Feige controlling that IP, bringing people on bit by bit, as opposed to everyone being virtually an equal owner, and able to try stuff, with, of course, like a core entity that's maybe driving it forward, like a foundation that's driving it forward. I would
Right.
hope that you could disrupt studios. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think they can. I also think that this is where, I spend a
If I lock, why don't we see if we can find each other again? Is this you, Jacob? Are you flying? Can you
I'm
see?
with yeah, I'm with the camera here, I think. Um,
Let's see.
I'm in the middle of these green fields. Do you know how to get to the green fields?
It's in the middle of green fields. Okay, let me see.
I'm no
I,
longer
I'm
flying.
going. I'm going to try to discover you. I think I can see a couple people wandering around. So
Look,
I
I'm gonna
will.
fly. I just started flying straight up in the middle of
You
these
started
green
flying
fields.
straight up. Okay. In the middle of these green. It sounds very religious. I mean, it's got a
Ah, yes,
very
yes, yes.
spiritual tone here. Um,
Do you know how to get to this the middle finger like meta thing over
what is
here?
it? What does it say on your map?
I'm
Yeah, okay, I see where you
uh
are. I see where you are. You're around on the map. It says PP. So I'm gonna
yep.
find you. Okay, I'm coming. I'm coming to find you.
Are
I'm
you the one near
Oh, now
Pisano
I'm getting to these
Square?
green fields. Now I'm getting to these green fields. There
Yep,
you are.
that's you. Yep.
There you are. We found each other. It's very beautiful and very nice. Wow, I've never seen these green fields before. That's good. A good find. Um,
Beautiful.
so we were saying, will this disrupt studios? Will this kind of
Yeah, yeah.
is every Bored Ape holder kind of a member of MGM? You know.
I think this is where I have conversations every week that range in topics from, and
Mhm,
I have I guess my skill sets and my interests also range a bit, and
mhm,
I end up talking about DAOs. I end up
mhm,
talking about, and then I also end up talking a lot about securities or potential securities. And
mhm,
frankly, I'm not a securities attorney with 30 years of experience. I'm a smart contract guy with 4 years of experience, right? 5 years of experience on that side. So it's deep and it's specific, but it's not securities. So when you say to me, does one successful Bored Ape project inherently or technically increase the value of all the others? Well, it's like by proxy, maybe, in the
mhm,
same way that like me owning a Michael Jordan rookie card and I see a Michael Jordan rookie card sale at, auction for $2 million. Well, that makes my Michael Jordan rookie card also worth more money, right? But
mhm.
it's not like we're seeing a collective like
Indirect.
revenue flow, right? Like
Mhm,
or a revenue share or a participation. So it's a bit like being a part of a studio, but that would be if, I think a difference might be if instead of Kevin Feige having access to the Marvel catalog, what
mhm,
if Kevin Feige actually just had Black Widow and could go do whatever he wanted with Black Widow and make whatever money he wanted with Black Widow? That would technically
Which helps the
enhance.
Marvel. It helps Marvel, but it's not a direct relationship. It's like
Exactly,
kind of does it. But I don't know. I mean, if I'm thinking about, let's say, a group of 5 people were like gonna, do I think polygonal mind, create the 3D avatar and animate it, like, that could significantly increase the value of holding an ape, especially if they were gonna give away that rig, or they were going to give away what they were doing. But yeah, it hasn't really happened. You're right. We haven't really seen, like, I haven't seen people doing that yet, doing projects that appear to be about increasing the shared value.
Right.
But I'm curious if we will. Well, let's talk a little about Ready Player DAO for a second, which I find fascinating. Maybe you could kind of, I'd say the audience knows what Axie is to a decent extent, but probably won't know what a scholar is. So maybe that would be kind of level setting of it.
Totally. So so DAOs are fascinating. They're inconsistent, and I think they're going to change the world. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure that all of them will, and I'm not sure if there will be consistent mechanics across the board at some point, or if they will continue to take on different shapes and sizes. But for now, this one is called Ready Player DAO. We're working with the team at Open Law for structuring and whatnot. And so I kind of got the Axie Infinity bug a few months ago. I had seen O'Shiny and Fuckrinder had been very bullish on Axie. As early as like January and February this year, I had seen that, but I was like, whatever. Like, it's a video game. I don't have time for video games right now. Not new video games. Of course, I played my old ones. And so I was like, whatever. But then come June, July, I was like, okay, the revenue on Axie is pretty insane. The community is very rabid. Like, they're growing like crazy. I want to, learn more. I invited a few real life friends, a few internet friends. And next thing you know, with a chain of events that's less relevant, I kind of pulled together 38 seats, 38 different people. So a few funds, a bunch of individuals, a couple DAOs, and we raised 1,500 ETH collectively in about 8 days. So we put together a little like $4.5 million fund at the time, and we chose to primarily deploy. I think we've ended up deploying about 75 or 80% of our initial treasury into Axie Infinity. And by doing so, so Axie Infinity is the first real use case of a play-to-earn blockchain game that has landed like significant market share. And by that, I mean, basically Axie is a game where they're charging you for the characters you buy. They're then utilizing these characters in liquidity pools to invest and make money off the back end, right? And to incentivize bringing in more money and spending more time on the game, the payout mechanic as you win and play the game is not simply in-game accrued points or gold like RuneScape or World of Warcraft, but they are in-game accrued currency in the form of SLP is what it's called. And this SLP, smooth love potion, by the way. It's very fun. This SLP is exchangeable for local currencies, right? It's exchangeable for ETH, which is exchangeable for whatever. So, one of the things that really blew my mind and got me the most excited was, by playing this game, the way the amount of like time put in works out is an individual player, they'll make, for various reasons, they'll make between like 15, let's say it's between 15 and 60 US dollars per day. Now, that isn't an incredible amount in the US, and to some people, that's not an incredible amount in general. However, a lot of the user base right now is actually in the Philippines, and then secondarily in Venezuela and parts of Mexico. And where 2 billion people in the world still live on like less than $2 a day. So when you're thinking of a game or anything that has this DeFi mechanic where the company makes money and the players make money, and the money is more than $2 a day and quite substantially more than $2 a day, You can see how this is going to revolutionize entire sections of the world. Not just Axie, but play to earn gaming in general. It's this utilization of DeFi and mechanics and money. And one of the more interesting things about Axie and the kind of program is it costs anywhere between, let's say, $1,000 and $3,000 to have one team right now. So there's not a lot of people in the Philippines that are wanting to play the game that can also purchase their own team. So it's called a scholarship program where Ready Player DAO and YGG, Blackpool, and several others, O'Shiny has quite a large scholar program where you buy the Axies and then you loan the Axies out to players. But instead of treating this like, 1800s sharecroppers in the US or, like a sharecropping tenant farmer, like slave wage kind of thing, where like the owner takes 90%, the player gets 10%. We actually do, the players keep 70%, the DAO only takes in 30%. And so it's referred to as like a non-exploitative or non-exploitive split. So they're making significant amounts of money and it's changing lives every day. And Ready Player DAO is now up to 1,500 scholars off of our initial tranche. And it's been amazing. So we're actually raising quite a large round right now to increase our performance and position in Axie, but also for us to have the ability to potentially write some checks into up and coming games. And we have, like I said, we have 38 seats filled right now, but out of those seats, several are funds and several are investors and several are gamers. You know what I mean? So when a company is considering taking on a check from a venture fund, they might get one board member and one advisor. If somebody starts taking checks from DAOs, which is one of the things I'm most bullish on with DAOs, that's 38 potential advisors who are willing to look at your deck, who are willing to play your demo, who are willing to give you feedback. And I think there's likely a diminishing returns at some point if a DAO is 3,000 people and you get 300 opinions, right? But when a DAO is still relatively tight, 50 people or less, 30 people or less, and they all
legally to invest in America, they would probably need to stay under 99, like Flamingo. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if Flamingo goes under 99, but a lot of
they are under 99. Yeah, they're under 99. They do intend to stay under 99. There's a threshold where it kind of kicks into like mutual funds territory and like regulatorily gets weird above 99. So
something you said earlier, I didn't. You were saying something about the liquidity pool, the characters, or so. This is obviously an area of action that I hadn't fully understood.
Yeah, so no, I just mean so like Axie Infinity, the company. If I buy Axies, I give them $3,000. They aren't just taking that $3,000 into their pockets and then slowly paying out users, right? They're taking that $3,000 and like utilizing various methods of liquidity pools or DeFi mechanics or investing or loaning out the money or whatever, so that they are growing the pot, right? You're giving them more money for the pot. They're able to then grow the pot, which allows them to continue to pay out players in the game.
Which theoretically makes it, because obviously there have been video games that pay, like mobile apps. I've had friends who like did that and it can become a little unsustainable, but that creates a little bit more hope of sustainability. And also, I guess none of those games that I feel like every play to earn game that we're familiar with is in basically one country and one income class. So like there is a significant difference when you have a first world country and a poorer country both playing. And I think just speaking personally, I really think it's good that you're like going straight at like this could be super exploitative, and we've kind of made decisions to make sure it's not exploitative. And I think that's good to kind of acknowledge and talk about. And it looks like not just talk about, actually you guys have made practical decisions to make this hopefully a really good thing that lifts people out of poverty. Yeah,
it totally will. I mean, again, the question of sustainability is kind of like, well, we can't just employ you can't just employ the entire third world in DeFi based video games, right? Like that's unsustainable
Jacob,
as well.
I mean, what are you talking about? What about ambition and boldness?
Well, I mean, we can't have local economies collapse and like food not be produced because all of the farmers decide to make more money playing DeFi-based video games from a tablet, right? Like,
I hadn't thought of that.
we have
This,
imagine a country.
it does
with
raise some
50
pretty
million people.
massive, big questions. I mean, it definitely is. It definitely is intense, right? To think all that stuff through. It's
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're there, kind of trying to think through what's the right way to do it and what's, you know, but big implication. You're right, for the global economy, big implications.
Totally. I mean, at some point, like, but again, like, I guess in a different direction, really. Like, we're looking at robots that can take over many things. We're
Yeah.
looking at farmers not necessarily needing to be humans anymore,
Right.
right? We're looking at UBI as like a genuine conversation. I mean, it's a virtual beings conference, right? Like,
Yeah.
UBI at some point is like, well, I'm not a UBI bull personally, but at the same time, I am so pro technology and innovation that I understand that I'm replacing lawyers by helping certain software move forward, right? Like, the software I was building in law school was to make sure we didn't need probate court, so that we could just have, when somebody dies, their wills and trusts are automated on smart contracts, right? You die, your stuff goes here. But if that happens,
so interesting. I didn't know you worked.
Yeah, so that's how I kind of got into all of this. Oh, I'm losing you a bit. Can you hear me?
I did not know that. That's a really cool. Hold on a second.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Hold on a second. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. It was my internet connection. But I was just saying,
okay.
What a cool backstory. I didn't know that, Jacob. Yeah, let's go and walk on the grass for a second.
Sure.
But I'd love to hear a little of that story.
Yeah, so well, I guess to jump over to that, like, basically, when I went down the blockchain rabbit hole, it was entirely the technology that did it for me, right? Like, my little brother told me about Bitcoin in 2012 or 2013, but it's because he was buying weed with it and explained it to me as a black market currency. And I was like, okay, is that it? Is it really just a black market currency? And he was like, yeah, basically, like, we're just using it for weed. And I was like, okay, I'm not that interested, I guess, right? Like, I wasn't smoking weed, I wasn't buying black market currency. But when I fell down the rabbit hole in 2016, I just was like in love with the tech, in love with the ledger, the utility, and then smart contracts came on my radar, like, from an academic perspective, reading as much as I could on those. And I was like, oh, well, like, this is going to replace every lawyer who causes friction, right? So some lawyers don't cause friction. They make things move forward. But there's so many processes that are friction, like deeds on houses and probate court when somebody dies. Like, there's no reason that your parents should die and you should wait 2 years to get through the court system to figure out who gets what. But that's very common. So yeah, so I say all of that just to circle, kind of circles back, and there's obviously a longer story there. You and I can chat about it sometime.
But it's one of the most profound examples of smart contracts I can think of, because there is no human left.
Right.
To
literally
as an oracle to say, like, this is what I wanted. It has to all be on the smart contract. It's kind of necessary.
Can you hear me now? I think we're chopping up again a little bit.
It's very cool. I didn't know you'd worked on that. I think that's a really cool. I can hear everything.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of, that's how I did some of that, and there's, lots of things that come with it. But basically, if we could do that to probate, we could do that to anything. And at the end of the day, like, UBI starts to kick in, where it's like, okay, well, we got rid of McDonald's cashiers, and we got rid of Target cashiers, and we got rid of probate lawyers, and we got rid of probate courts, right? Like, you just start every year, you start losing 5% of jobs in the world, right? We're losing more farm jobs because there's more automation. We're losing more, we're losing more oil refinery workers because they're making plastic for electric cars now instead of making refined oil for cars, right? Like, it's just like
happening.
Yeah, it's happening, right? It's happening to the point where
Well,
Axie might be a big deal, and play to earn
mm,
gaming might literally build and destroy various economies at the same time, right? Like that's an interesting concept that it's both
it's
improving and
scary.
destroying.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah,
It's scary, but maybe we'll. I mean, the hope has to be that it leads to more equality,
right.
but certainly very early days. Um, so a couple of questions from the audience, and then we're going to let you go. So we had some
Do it.
questions. And one was about the kind of Bored Apes versus Lava Labs. Which do you think is good? Which IP model do you think is going to be the dominant one over time?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm bullish on punks being like the crown jewel of any collection or lifestyle that is um, deeply reverent to internet culture and
Mm,
both the past and future of the internet.
mm,
I think punks will be the Basquiats of that. They will
mm,
be the Monet, the Manet. Like we're in like I think probably $5 to $10 million for punks territory because people just won't sell them at some
mm,
point. I think we're a year out, maybe 2 years out, where like people just won't sell it. It just ain't
mm,
gonna happen.
mm,
So I think apes, however, are likely more dynamic in a lot of ways and will
mm,
make their holders more money. Um, like like as direct revenue from their ape, right? Like I think there's more likelihood
interesting.
that they license their ape, they utilize their ape, they put it on hoodies or movies or
I
whatever.
think that's a really interesting. I'd not thought of that. That like the core that because that it's not like much has happened. It's not like Lava Labs is doing much with the punks, but maybe that purity kind of makes them a better hold. Whereas you're right, the
Well,
Bored Apes by
maybe.
giving IP away, like you kind of you incentivize something more entrepreneurial where they could make regular revenue with it.
Right. I mean, UTA signed Larva Labs recently, right? So
Yeah.
the punks, we will start to see punk IP utilized in various ways. They'll license it onto stuff, t-shirts,
Mm,
movies, all kinds of things. But we don't get direct revenue flow from that. We may or may
right.
not just have like a cultural buoying of the price, right? Like people will be like,
Mm,
"Oh, I know what a punk is now. Oh my god,
mm,
I see Jay Z has one. I see Odell Beckham Jr. has one. I see Jake and Logan Paul have them. Gary V has one, right? Like
mm,
there comes a point where hedge funders and TikTokers and internet geeks and Vitalik himself all
mm,
say, I have to have a punk. And the more people that say I have to have a punk, I think at the same time, there's going to be more people saying I'll never sell,
mm,
right? Like
mm.
someone asked me yesterday what I would sell my punk for. I said, well, I would sell my punk for multiple million right now, but I would then just turn around and buy more punks. Like, if you mean what would I sell it for and walk away from punks, I don't know. I don't know a walk away number right now because I
The man is a
foresee
true
my
believer. He's a
career.
true believer.
Well, I just foresee my career and everything I do day to day being, um, my the trust, the on-chain trust,
Mm,
the collective, community that I'm in and a part of and representative of. I believe is just like it's part of my brand. It's part of who I am in many ways in the market.
mm.
To the degree that like,
Well,
yeah,
Twitter is now adding these verified profile pictures and whatever.
yeah, and then Twitter will do that as well, which will be, more or less the same as a blue check mark. Like now we won't even care about blue check marks as long as it's a blue check mark on the NFT itself, right? Um,
Oh, that's funny. I hadn't
so
even thought about that. That's very funny. A red check mark or something.
right,
Um,
exactly.
all right. Well, last question from the audience.
Yeah,
And I know reading it that you're not a tax lawyer, but I have also seen
yeah.
some of your tweets that have educated me as a complete, novice. So yeah, the question is like, how do taxes and NFTs work? I know total disclaimer, Jacob is not a tax attorney, but you have said some good basic things that I think have helped a lot of people on Twitter. So maybe just the kind of basics that as you see them.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, we have a guide coming out. I've worked
Mm,
with multiple tax attorneys and multiple CPAs
mm,
to get it right. We're looking at like 8 to 10 pages worth of a PDF right now that will be kind of the ultimate. crypto DeFi NFT guide, tax guide.
Mm.
I mean, there's a lot of blog posts that'll tell you that, but at the same time, like those are all coming from individual accountants or individuals. I had a group that I pulled together, and so it's a bit more like neutral, nuance, agree on, disagree on, you know, and it got to where it is. It looks quite good right now. But for basics, I mean, the thing is, use a tax software, like try out several if you want to, you know, get comfortable with the fact that like if you are using a MetaMask wallet that comfortably ties back into a custodial wallet, right? Your Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini or whatever you're using, you can't just like make a bunch of money selling NFTs and then pull it back to your bank account and not expect to pay taxes, right? Like that part's just not going to happen. Now, is it a shorter long-term capital gain tax, or is it a flat 28% collectibles tax? We actually don't have firm guidance from the IRS yet. I'm treating every NFT I sell as a collector. I'm treating it like 30%. But now that doesn't mean that I'm setting aside 30%, which would be the safer move. But I'm like earmarking in my mind.
That's 30% on the profit that you made of the NFT.
Right.
Right. I've seen your tweets on that were like, you know, remember, you say how great it is that you sold X or Y. Remember the kind of, there's a percentage cut that you need to like think about as well, which is, I think, helpful for people.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, the most basic math, and again, the math could be wrong. Don't come attack me, but it's like, if you have 100 ETH profit on something, people are like, oh, well, I can write off the gas fees. I can write off my cost basis. I can write off all these things. And it's like, okay, first of all, like maybe. Second of all, like good luck baking that in or like arguing that to the IRS. And then second, you know, you had 100 ETH profit, but you know, the platform took their cut and the IRS is going to take their cut. So, you know, don't think of it as, oh, well, there's only a 10% royalty here. So I sold for 100 ETH profit. I got 90. I can do whatever I want with 90. It's like, actually, it's probably 100 ETH profit minus the platform fees of 10 ETH minus, you know, 28% of that remaining 90 profit, which is almost another 30 or whatever, right? So you really only have more like 63 ETH to work with or 65 ETH to work with on 100 ETH profit sale. So those numbers could be right or wrong, but we're firmly headed towards, you know, towards the promised land and paying our taxes. And, you know, we'll make sure to have the tax guide ready for end of October. So people will have several months to prepare, you know, for tax season.
Yeah. Well, I feel as though we've gone to the highs of, you know, changing global economies, of loads of like the whiplash of like, wait, there's so much tax.
Exactly.
So thank you very much, Jacob, for taking the time. And this was super fun and I hope very informative for everyone at the summit.
Yeah, thanks for having me.